You find yourself standing at the edge of the forest, a place you've walked many times before, yet today it feels different. Perhaps it's the way the sunlight filters through the branches, casting long shadows across the path, or the crispness of the air that seems to clear your mind with every breath. You've come here countless times, seeking solace, seeking answers, but today there's a quiet tension in the air. You feel a pull, an urge to go deeper into the woods. Not because you have to, but because you must. Something is waiting for you, hidden between the trees, in the silence that lies beneath the rustling of leaves. You walk deeper into the forest, your steps muffled by the soft earth beneath you. The world around you seems to fade, the distant hum of the city, the rush of responsibilities, the noise in your mind, all silenced by the ancient embrace of nature. But then, the strangest thought crosses your mind. What is it about this place that makes you feel so at peace? Why does the forest have this ability to pull you in, to quiet the tumult in your soul, even when the world around you is in chaos? Could it be that serenity exists in places like these, hidden in plain sight? Or perhaps it's simply that the forest gives you permission to feel this way, to let go of the burdens that weigh heavy on your shoulders. In the woods, the answer is not so much a discovery, but an awakening, an unveiling of something that has always been inside you, waiting for the right moment to surface. But is this serenity truly your own? This question gnaws at you as you walk. After all, you've always believed that finding peace was a personal journey, that you alone could control when and how you would feel at ease. But here, in this forest, you wonder, is serenity something you actively seek, or is it something you've been chasing all your life without even realizing it? As your feet carry you along the winding trail, you begin to consider the science behind this feeling, the inexplicable calm that washes over you the deeper you venture into the woods. Studies have long suggested that nature has a profound impact on our mental and emotional well-being. In a world where stress is a constant companion, the forest is a sanctuary, offering something rare, the ability to ground you, to reset your mind. Yet, is that all it is? Is this merely a biological response, a shift in brain chemistry triggered by the green of the leaves and the scent of the earth? Or is there something more, something beyond the reach of science that draws you to this place, something that reaches into the core of your being? As you walk, the familiar hum of the forest seems to come alive. You hear the rustling of leaves, the distant call of a bird, the gentle flow of a nearby stream. The sounds are not intrusive. They do not demand your attention, nor do they overwhelm you. They simply exist. And in their existence, they seem to coax your mind into quieting itself, to let go of the noise inside and focus solely on the present moment. This isn't the first time you've experienced this kind of peace. You've come to this place before, seeking relief from the demands of your life, from the chaos of your thoughts. And each time, the forest offers you the same gentle release, the same soft embrace that reminds you that peace is not something you need to search for. It is something you need only to allow yourself to feel. But as you walk deeper, you wonder if you've ever truly understood what this peace means. You've always thought of it as an escape from the world, a retreat from your responsibilities, a place where the noise of everyday life fades away. But what if this peace is not an absence of disturbance at all? What if it is simply the ability to exist within the chaos, to find a rhythm that aligns with the natural world around you, rather than against it? Your thoughts are interrupted as you reach a clearing. The sunlight breaks through the canopy in golden beams, illuminating the soft carpet of moss beneath your feet. It's here that you pause, as though something in the air has shifted. Something has changed, or perhaps you have changed. You feel it before you see it. The subtle presence of something ancient and wise, a force that has watched over this place for longer than you could ever comprehend. It is in the stillness, in the way the trees stand unmoving, in the way the air holds its breath. There is a certain rightness to this moment, a perfect alignment between yourself and the world around you. For the first time in a long while, you feel small, not in a way that diminishes you, but in a way that fills you with humility. You are not the center of the universe, nor are your concerns the most important. The trees, the moss, the wind, they have all been here long before you arrived, and will remain long after you've gone. And yet, in this moment, you share this space with them, a part of the timeless cycle of nature. It's then that the question arises again, more clearly this time. Why do we feel peace in nature? Studies have shown that exposure to nature reduces cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone, and promotes a sense of well-being. But does science truly explain the feeling of serenity you experience here? Or is there something more to it? Could it be that we, as humans, are simply attuned to the rhythms of the natural world in a way that transcends biology? Perhaps, like the trees that sway with the wind, we are meant to flow with life, to be part of a greater whole. As you stand in the clearing, you feel the weight of this question pressing against you, but instead of seeking an answer, you allow it to linger, to grow, to dissolve into the surrounding landscape. There is no need for a resolution here. The peace you seek is not one that can be found through logic or reasoning. It is a peace that exists in the very fabric of the world, waiting for you to surrender to it, to accept it as a part of who you are. You sit down on a rock, the cool surface grounding you to the earth. The sound of the stream nearby grows clearer, more pronounced. You close your eyes, letting the sound of the water fill your mind, the rhythm of its flow mirroring the rhythm of your own breath. For a moment, there is no separation between you and the world around you. You are not an observer here. You are part of the forest, part of the earth, part of the quiet hum that vibrates through everything. And in this moment, you understand. The forest does not offer peace because it is untouched by the chaos of the world. It offers peace because it has learned to exist with that chaos, to adapt, to flow with it. The trees do not fight the wind, they bend with it. The rivers do not resist their course, they flow through it. And perhaps, in our human quest for peace, we too must learn not to fight the chaos, but to find our place within it, to bend with the forces that shape our lives, and to flow through them with grace. As you sit there, the breeze carrying the scent of pine and fresh earth, you begin to wonder about the origins of this tranquil connection between humans and nature. There is something about the trees, the leaves, the ground beneath your feet, that seems almost ancestral. It calls to a part of you that you cannot explain, a deeper part of your being that has always known the forest, even if you have never consciously known it. It's as though this place is not merely a refuge from the world, but a link to something ancient, a connection to a wisdom that has been passed down through generations. Not in words, but in the very act of existing here. There is a history to this. Long before the concrete jungles rose, long before the rush of cars and the hum of electric lights, humans lived in direct communion with the earth. The forest was their home, their provider, and their sanctuary. They knew its rhythms, its seasons, its moods, and it was in this deep, symbiotic relationship with nature that they found the wisdom that seems to elude us in our modern lives. They understood that peace was not something you sought outside of yourself, but something you could cultivate by becoming one with the world around you. There is a line from an ancient poem you recall now. In stillness, the forest speaks to those who listen. For much of human history, nature was not something to be controlled or conquered. It was a source of life and meaning, a teacher. Our ancestors didn't need studies or research to tell them what the forest gave them. They felt it as an intrinsic part of their lives. They walked the earth with their feet in tune with its pulse, their minds attuned to the patterns of the stars and the soil beneath them. They lived in harmony, not with some ideal of nature, but with nature as it was. The ancient forests were not tranquil because they were untouched by time, but because they had lived through storms, droughts, fires, and regeneration. And so too had our ancestors. They had learned to adapt, to flow with the natural cycles, to surrender to what could not be controlled. But somewhere along the way, we lost this connection. We traded the peace of the forest for the distractions of the modern world, the soft glow of screens, replacing the soft whispers of leaves in the wind. Yet, even in our disconnectedness, the forest still calls to us. It still holds its quiet wisdom, waiting for us to remember. And so, we return, again and again, seeking something we cannot fully articulate, but something we know we need. You lean back on the rock, letting the sun warm your face. It's strange to think that something so simple, so ordinary as this forest, could hold the key to something so elusive as inner peace. After all, there is so much disorder in the world, so many things outside of your control. Yet, in the forest, there is no struggle. The leaves grow because they are meant to grow. The river flows because it is meant to flow. The natural world simply is. It does not question its existence. It does not resist its own nature. But humans are different. We question everything. We resist everything. We fight for control over every aspect of our lives, thinking that in doing so, we will finally find peace. We look for answers in logic, in science, in philosophy. But when we are alone in the woods, we realize that peace doesn't come from understanding or mastering the world around us. It comes from surrendering to it. You take a deep breath, your chest rising with the cool air. This is what has eluded you all this time. The realization that peace isn't something you fight for. It is something you become. It is a state of being, not of doing. You've spent so much of your life trying to force serenity into your life, trying to control your circumstances, trying to solve problems with logic and willpower. But here, in the presence of nature, you realize that peace is not something to be achieved. It is something to be experienced. And so, as you sit in the clearing, you let go of all the thoughts and worries that have followed you here. You release your need to understand, to explain, to solve. You simply are. And in that simple act of being, you find yourself immersed in the kind of peace that only the forest can offer. The kind of peace that has always existed, not because it's been manufactured, but because it is as natural as the trees themselves. As you sit there, absorbed in the stillness, you notice that the world around you is not as you remembered it. The birds, the leaves, the wind, they all seem more vibrant, more alive. In this moment, you understand. Serenity is not about escaping the world, but about immersing yourself in it. It's about moving with the currents of life, not against them. It's about accepting the chaos, the unpredictability, the impermanence of existence, and finding peace in that acceptance. There is a history to this. Long before the concrete jungles rose, long before the rush of cars and the hum of electric lights, humans lived in direct communion with the earth. The forest was their home, their provider, and their sanctuary. They knew its rhythms, its seasons, its moods, and it was in this deep, symbiotic relationship with nature that they found the wisdom that seems to elude us in our modern lives. They understood that peace was not something you sought outside of yourself, but something you could cultivate by becoming one with the world around you. There is a line from an ancient poem you recall now: "In stillness, the forest speaks to those who listen." For much of human history, nature was not something to be controlled or conquered. It was a source of life and meaning, a teacher. Our ancestors didn't need studies or research to tell them what the forest gave them. They felt it as an intrinsic part of their lives. They walked the earth with their feet in tune with its pulse, their minds attuned to the patterns of the stars and the soil beneath them. They lived in harmony, not with some ideal of nature, but with nature as it was. The ancient forests were not tranquil because they were untouched by time, but because they had lived through storms, droughts, fires, and regeneration. And so too had our ancestors. They had learned to adapt, to flow with the natural cycles, to surrender to what could not be controlled. But somewhere along the way, we lost this connection. We traded the peace of the forest for the distractions of the modern world, the soft glow of screens replacing the soft whispers of leaves in the wind. Yet, even in our disconnectedness, the forest still calls to us. It still holds its quiet wisdom, waiting for us to remember. And so, we return, again and again, seeking something we cannot fully articulate, but something we know we need. You lean back on the rock, letting the sun warm your face. It's strange to think that something so simple, so ordinary as this forest, could hold the key to something so elusive as inner peace. After all, there is so much disorder in the world, so many things outside of your control. Yet in the forest, there is no struggle. The leaves grow because they are meant to grow. The river flows because it is meant to flow. The natural world simply is. It does not question its existence. It does not resist its own nature. But humans are different. We question everything. We resist everything. We fight for control over every aspect of our lives, thinking that in doing so, we will finally find peace. We look for answers in logic, in science, in philosophy. But when we are alone in the woods, we realize that peace doesn't come from understanding or mastering the world around us. It comes from surrendering to it. You take a deep breath, your chest rising with the cool air. This is what has eluded you all this time. The realization that peace isn't something you fight for. It is something you become. It is a state of being, not of doing. You've spent so much of your life trying to force serenity into your life, trying to control your circumstances, trying to solve problems with logic and willpower. But here, in the presence of nature, you realize that peace is not something to be achieved. It is something to be experienced. And so, as you sit in the clearing, you let go of all the thoughts and worries that have followed you here. You release your need to understand, to explain, to solve. You simply are. And in that simple act of being, you find yourself immersed in the kind of peace that only the forest can offer, the kind of peace that has always existed, not because it's been manufactured, but because it is as natural as the trees themselves. As you sit there, absorbed in the stillness, you notice that the world around you is not as you remembered it. The birds, the leaves, the wind, they all seem more vibrant, more alive. In this moment you understand. Serenity is not about escaping the world, but about immersing yourself in it. It's about moving with the currents of life, not against them. It's about accepting the chaos, the unpredictability, the impermanence of existence, and finding peace in that acceptance. This realization feels like an awakening, like you have been sleepwalking through life, and now, for the first time, you are truly alive. You realize that nature is not merely a backdrop to our lives, but an integral part of who we are. We are not separate from it. We are an expression of it. The trees, the rivers, the mountains, they are not just the setting for our lives, but the very source of our being. But there is a paradox here, a mystery that tugs at the edges of your consciousness. If the forest is so calming, if it offers such clarity, then why do so few people seem to experience it in the way you do? Why do so many walk through these same woods, only to leave unchanged, unaffected by the very beauty that seems to be all around them? The answer, you think, lies in how we approach nature. We are so used to approaching life as a series of problems to be solved, of challenges to be overcome, of obstacles to be conquered. But perhaps true peace does not come from solving problems. It comes from letting go of the need to solve them. The forest does not struggle to be what it is. It simply is. And in that being, it offers a profound lesson. To be is enough. And so, as the sun begins to set and the shadows grow long, you rise from your spot on the rock, feeling a sense of peace that you did not have when you first arrived. You know that, as much as you want to stay, you must leave. The world outside the forest awaits, with all of its demands and distractions. But now, you carry with you something more precious than you had before. A deeper understanding of what it means to be at peace, not in spite of the world's chaos, but because of it. As you walk back along the path, you realize that the forest does not disappear when you leave. It is still there, within you, a part of your being. And though the world may try to pull you back into its noise, you know that the forest is always waiting for you, just beyond the trees, always ready to remind you of what it means to be. As you continue walking through the forest, the serenity of the space begins to wrap itself more deeply around you. The rustling leaves become a soft, rhythmic song, and the forest's pulse starts to synchronize with your own heartbeat. You notice the subtle shifts in the environment, the light filtering through the canopy, casting gentle, dappled shadows on the path, and the occasional flutter of wings as a bird takes flight in the distance. The sense of separation between you and the natural world begins to fade. You are no longer merely walking through the forest. You are a part of it, intertwined with it. There's a distinct feeling that comes with this realization. It's as if you've stumbled upon a truth that has been buried beneath layers of distractions and misconceptions. You've heard people talk about being at one with nature, but the words never fully made sense until now. The air smells of wet earth and decaying leaves, a mixture that reminds you of the cyclical nature of life, of growth, death, and rebirth. The forest is not static. It is alive in a way that you, as a human, often forget. The trees shed their leaves and grow new ones. The soil continually replenishes itself with nutrients, and the river carves new paths through the land. Nothing here is stagnant. Everything evolves. This constant transformation, without resistance, seems to be the very essence of peace. In your past, peace was something you tried to control, something that had to be achieved by fixing problems, eliminating stress, or creating the perfect environment. But here, peace is not something that can be manufactured. It is not about getting everything right or achieving a state of perfection. It is about embracing the fluidity of life, the ebb and flow of existence, without trying to control it. As you walk further into the woods, your thoughts shift from the typical human tendency to problem solve towards something more expansive. You stop thinking of yourself as an observer of the world, and instead, you begin to feel that you are, in essence, an active participant in the ever-changing, never-ending cycle of nature. You notice that the forest is not uniform. Some parts are filled with sunlight, warm and inviting, while others are cloaked in deep, quiet shade. Some trees are tall and strong, standing like sentinels over the land, while others are younger, smaller, and still learning how to grow. There are patches of wildflowers, their colors vivid and bright, contrasting with the subdued tones of the forest floor. There are fallen branches and rotting trunks, where decay gives way to new life. Each aspect of the forest, from the vibrant to the decayed, contributes to the overall harmony. None is more important than the other. Each part plays its role in the larger ecosystem, and in that role, it is at peace. This diversity within nature is an important lesson. It mirrors the complexity of the human experience. Humans, like the forest, are made up of countless layers: our experiences, our emotions, our struggles, and triumphs. We are constantly changing, evolving, growing, and sometimes decaying. We, too, are part of an intricate ecosystem, and just as every part of the forest has value, so too does every part of us. The moments of joy and triumph, just like the moments of loss and pain, contribute to who we are. Yet we tend to treat certain emotions, certain experiences, as something to be avoided, as if they are obstacles to the peace we crave. But what if, just like in the forest, the entire range of experiences is essential to our growth? What if the dark and difficult moments are as valuable as the bright and beautiful ones? As you move deeper into the woods, the sound of a distant stream reaches your ears. It's a soft, constant murmur, like a whisper inviting you to follow. The path becomes a bit more rugged, with rocks and roots underfoot, but you feel no rush. You've let go of the need to hurry. You pause for a moment to listen to the stream, to hear its steady flow, and something in you begins to settle. The stream does not struggle. It does not fight against its path. It simply flows, carving its way through the landscape, reshaping the earth as it goes. And in this simplicity, there is peace. You begin to understand that peace is not a destination. It is a process, a way of being. The stream's flow is not the result of deliberate control or forceful action. It is the natural consequence of water following its path. You too are a stream, and your own path has been shaped by forces beyond your control. The question is not whether or not you can control your path, but whether or not you are willing to allow yourself to flow with it. As you sit by the edge of the stream, watching the water move past you, your mind drifts to the complexities of human life. We often believe that peace is the absence of challenge, the absence of struggle. We associate peace with stillness, with a quiet mind, with moments where everything feels in perfect harmony. But what if peace is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to embrace it? What if true peace is found not in escaping the world's chaos, but in learning to navigate it with grace and acceptance? You think back to your earlier life, before you found this space, before you found this understanding of peace. You remember the constant stress, the rush of deadlines, the feeling of being overwhelmed by the weight of expectations. You remember the constant yearning for escape, the belief that if only you could eliminate the chaos, you would finally find peace. But now, as you sit in the forest, you realize that the chaos was never the enemy. It was always part of the journey. The key, you realize, is not to run from it, but to engage with it in a way that allows you to remain centered, grounded, and serene. It's an unsettling thought, though, because it challenges everything you've believed about how the world works. We are raised in a society that encourages control, achievement, and perfection. We are taught that peace comes from getting everything right, from eliminating all the things that disrupt our sense of order. But here, in the heart of the forest, the lesson is different. The forest doesn't seek to eliminate chaos. It simply exists within it, moving with it, adapting to it. And in that quiet, constant movement, there is a deep and profound peace. You stand, feeling the pull of the forest once again. You walk slowly, following the stream as it winds deeper into the woods. The world outside these trees feels distant now, a memory that belongs to a different version of yourself. As you continue walking, you begin to understand something even more profound, that the forest, with all its beauty and chaos, is not separate from you. It is you. You are part of this intricate web of existence, and the forest is a mirror of your own inner landscape. It shows you that peace is not something you find. It is something you cultivate from within, from the quiet acceptance of life as it is. You may leave the forest behind when you walk back to your everyday life, but you carry it with you in a way you never have before. You've learned to see the world in a new way, to embrace its contradictions, its struggles, its chaotic beauty. The peace you sought has always been here, not hidden somewhere far away, but right at your feet, waiting for you to notice. And now, as you make your way back to the world you know, you realize that the journey has only just begun. The forest has given you the wisdom to navigate life, not with force, but with a sense of calm, knowing that even in the deepest struggles, there is always the potential for peace, if you know how to see it. As you continue walking, the deeper you go into the heart of the forest, the more the world outside seems to fade. The echoes of city noise, the urgency of deadlines, the weight of expectations, all of it dissolves into the whisper of the trees. With every step, the rhythm of your breath slows to match the gentle sway of the branches above you. It is a rare kind of quiet, not the silence of emptiness, but the fullness of something ancient and alive. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that the forest is not merely a place, it is an experience, a presence, a state of being. You pause at a clearing where the sunlight spills through the trees in golden columns, illuminating the dust and pollen suspended in the air like tiny fireflies frozen in motion. You reach out, allowing your fingers to move through the illuminated mist, watching as the particles swirl and reform in new patterns. It is a small moment, an insignificant one in the grand scheme of life, and yet it holds an almost unbearable beauty. It makes you think, how many of these moments have you missed? How many times have you been so caught up in your thoughts, in your worries, that you failed to notice the way the morning light stretches across your bedroom wall, or the way a single drop of rain clings to a leaf before falling? If peace has been waiting in these small, quiet moments all along, then perhaps it was never about seeking something external. Perhaps it was about learning to notice what has always been there. As this realization settles within you, you begin to hear another sound, distant at first, but growing closer with every step. It is the unmistakable murmur of flowing water, a river carving its way through the forest floor. Drawn by the sound, you follow an unmarked path, weaving through the underbrush until the trees part to reveal a breathtaking sight. A river stretches before you, its surface shimmering in the afternoon light, moving with effortless grace over smooth stones. Unlike the rigid, structured roads of the city, the river does not demand to be followed. It meanders where it chooses, cutting its own path, adapting to obstacles rather than fighting them. There is wisdom in its motion, a quiet lesson hidden in its fluidity. You watch the water as it rushes over rocks, finding the easiest path without resistance. The river does not struggle against its course. It does not fight to hold its shape. It simply flows, moving in harmony with the land, shaping it over time but never forcing it to conform. You crouch by the water's edge and touch the surface, feeling the coolness slip through your fingers. It occurs to you that life is not so different from this river. We, too, are shaped by the landscapes we move through, by the obstacles we encounter, and yet so often we fight against the flow, trying to control every twist and turn of our journey. But what if, like the river, we could learn to move with life rather than against it? What if peace was not found in rigid control, but in the surrender to movement? The thought lingers as you rise and continue following the water's edge. As you walk, you begin to understand something you had never considered before. Nature does not rush, and yet everything gets done. The trees do not force themselves to grow, yet they reach skyward in their own time. The flowers do not demand to bloom, yet they unfurl when the season is right. The river does not resist the bends in its path, yet it continues moving forward. And in each of these quiet processes, there is peace, not in passivity, but in the deep knowing that everything happens in its own time. It makes you wonder, why do humans place so much pressure on themselves to always be moving forward, always achieving, always proving their worth? If the natural world is content to evolve at its own pace, why do we demand so much urgency from ourselves? Perhaps this is why the forest feels so healing. It does not ask you to be anything other than what you are. It does not measure your worth by your productivity. It simply allows you to exist. As you reflect on this, your footsteps bring you to an old oak tree standing tall on the riverbank. Its bark is rough and weathered, its roots sprawling deep into the earth. This tree has seen countless seasons, bitter winters, scorching summers, storms that shook the ground beneath it. And yet, it still stands, not because it fought against the forces of nature, but because it adapted to them. The wind did not break it. It taught it how to bend. The rain did not erode it. It nourished it. The years did not weaken it. They made it strong. You press your palm against the bark, feeling its deep grooves beneath your fingers, and you think about all the storms you have weathered in your own life. The moments of uncertainty, the unexpected hardships, the losses that left you feeling uprooted. And yet, you are still here. Not because you fought against life's hardships, but because you adapted to them, learned from them, grew from them. Perhaps, like the oak, your strength was never in resisting the storm, but in standing through it. The thought brings an unexpected sense of relief, a quiet assurance that you do not have to have everything figured out. You do not have to fight so hard to control every aspect of your journey. You only need to keep growing, to keep bending with the wind, to trust that you, like the forest, are exactly where you are meant to be. For the first time in a long while, you feel something shift inside you, a sense of ease, of acceptance, of deep-rooted calm. You take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of damp earth and pine, and you let yourself be, not reaching for the past, not worrying about the future, just here, in this moment, as you are. As the sun begins to set, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, you slowly make your way back along the winding path. The forest, which once felt like an escape, now feels like a reminder of who you are, of what peace truly means. It is not something you must chase. It is not something that exists only in solitude or stillness. It is something that lives within you, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be embraced. You step out from beneath the canopy of trees, back onto the road that leads to the world beyond the forest. The sounds of distant cars hum in the background, the reminders of daily life beginning to return. And yet, you are not the same as when you entered. You carry the forest with you now, not just in memory, but in the way you move, the way you breathe, the way you understand. Because now you know, peace is not found in the absence of noise or struggle. It is found in the way you learn to live within it. Like the river, like the trees, like the wind that moves without fear, you are part of something greater. And for the first time, that knowledge does not feel overwhelming. It feels like home. And just like that, you realize you will return here again. Not because the forest is where peace exists, but because the forest has taught you that peace has been inside you all along.